When we talk about imperialism of Africa in the 1800s, we often have to think about it as having six major components, and I know the number may differ, but for the most part, the important thing to realize is that it has major components to it that cause it. First, you have these idea of self-sufficiency and new markets. You can sort of group these two as your economic reasons. So self-sufficiency essentially means that you want to make sure that your resources are protected. As I think I said in class, it's the idea that Britain wants cheap cotton, so Britain doesn't want to have to trade with, let's say, America or Germany for this cotton. So instead they want to make or have a colony that has these in it. So that's why they go after India and imperialize India. In terms of the new markets, it's the idea that we also need to then sell our goods somewhere. So what we do is we make the cheap products out of the cheap cotton from India in Liverpool and Manchester, wherever, and we then sell it back to India in the form of saris. So it's this idea that we make products from the things that they give us, but we also then sell it back to them. This idea of nationalism or social pride or something like that is also a cause, right? We want our country to win, quote unquote, in the Industrial Revolution, so we do that. We want to have the resources to do that. So we have nationalism and we go to other countries. Outlets for population is also there, right? This idea that during the Industrial Revolution, population continues to increase. So we want to then make more colonies to send those people out. And as I said, too, that's why we send people to Australia, right? It's this, we need to get rid of this mass number of people. Finally, you have these two cultural motives here on the bottom. Social motives, let's say cultural, right? It's this idea that we want to Christianize, or we want to imperialize, and we want to make people better. And in particular, this becomes articulated in the white man's burden, right? This idea that it is the white man's burden to go out and educate and civilize all the other people, right? Finally, one that I haven't really talked about, and I guess sort of goes back to this nationalism idea, is this idea that we now need to protect ourselves, and that's the military part of it. We need two things in terms of military. First, we need places to fuel up our boats, right? If we are now going to have this huge military, we need places to fuel our coal-burning boats. So we get colonies to do this. We also now need resources for that military. So we also have to, and people for that military. So we have to have new places. So I use this definition to describe imperialism. It's when imperialist nations, industrial nations of Europe, need resources and markets, so they expand their economies. Now that's very simple. That's the economic reason, nicely bundled together. But it then has the social and cultural motives, right? We need to educate these people, and that's what happens. So that often becomes what we call here the white man's burden. That's the social Darwinism part of it. If you remember from last year maybe with Miss Abad, or whenever you've looked at Darwinism, we often think of the term survival of the fittest, right? And if we drew a triangle, the Europeans would see that the white man was the top of that, and everybody else needed to sort of pick up and be like them. And the thought is, if the white man can bring everybody else up, then they would be able to be fit. So it was the job of the white man to do that. And as I said before, this becomes known as the white man's burden. And I believe the word man is over here somewhere. It's by a guy named Rudyard Kipling. Now you need to remember, the white man's burden is two things. It's actually a poem, which we will read. It's a poem, but it's also this idea, right? So it's a poem, certainly, but it's also this idea, this philosophy that guides new imperialism, okay? One other important thing to remember about the new imperialism is this idea of mercantilism. So mercantilism is often defined as the mother country seeing all of the benefit from imperialism. And that's a good thing to remember, right? That we are not doing colonialism, we are not doing imperialism for the benefit of the people living in Africa. We are not doing it for the benefit of the people living in wherever. We are doing it for the benefit of the people living in Europe. And that's important because it also comes back to this idea of the Second Industrial Revolution. When it comes to the Second Industrial Revolution, we also need to remember that people still want to win the Industrial Revolution. So they need these chemicals, materials that are provided in Africa and Asia to do that. And it is, again, further spurred on by this idea of nationalism and pride. Now, we know that all of this begins in the 1870s, 1860s maybe even, particularly when the nations of Germany and Italy become unified. When Germany and Italy become unified, you have this problem that is created. And it is that the balance of power in Europe is now divided, right? The balance of power is upset because you have these new nations that are struggling for resources and power. So in the 1870s, Leopold II of Belgium establishes a colony in the Belgian, what becomes the Belgian Congo, right? And this upsets a lot of people because this tiny little country in Europe is now establishing this huge colony in Africa. And actually, I will show you. This is the size of the Belgian Congo. It's quite large, and Belgium is actually, the actual country of Belgium is quite small. So this upsets a lot of people. So he sets up this colony, and one of the people who he upsets is Otto von Bismarck. You'll remember him from the unification of Germany, right, in 1871. So in 1884, they host in Berlin the Berlin Conference. And at this meeting, they establish sort of the rules of the game. How can we then divide up Africa? And we set up the rules and who gets what territory. So we call this the scramble for Africa. It causes people to flood to Africa to try and get as much land and the land that they are owed as quickly as possible. So this is a funny little cartoon about it. This is not a contemporary cartoon. This is a cartoon made, I believe, in like 2003 or something like that. So it's obviously not from the 1880s, but it is kind of funny. It's a little cute. So why are they going to Africa? This is why. Africa has a huge amount of resources. It's got diamonds and gold down here in South Africa, quite frankly all over. Oil today, which is very important to us. Gold up here in the northwest. So they have tons and tons of materials that people want and people need, particularly in the Second Industrial Revolution, right? As the chemicals are developing, we need these things. So one place that I really want us to talk about, and I think is going to become very, very important to us, is South Africa. We all know about South Africa, particularly last year when we looked at Nelson Mandela and his death, but also his legacy with the apartheid and all that. We need to know then, what's the deal with South Africa? And South Africa is this very interesting place, because if you look at this map here, Germany is over here in what is today South Africa, but also you have the British down here in the rest of South Africa. So that's an important thing to see, that you have this very unique area where you have Germany and England right next to each other. In the early 1800s, as an outlet for population, Germans and Belgians send into Africa these German and Dutch settlers, and they're called Boers, B-O-E-R-S. And the British are also going there, again, because outlets for population, places to go. Actually, and also, this tip down here, this tip of South Africa, makes a really great fueling station if you're going to Australia, which is over here, right? So this is a strategic location for the British. So the British are sending their people there. Now, these Dutch/German settlers are being very upset that the English are taking their land, so they call in the German military to help them out. When the German military show up, you have the beginning of conflicts between the Germans and the British. And between 1899 and 1902, you have what are called the Boer Wars. There's actually two of them, but I just call them one right here. Now, depending on where you live, you call it either the Boer War or the South African War. They refer to the same thing, they just call them different things. Now, this is the first war of the 20th century. If you notice, it goes into the 20th century. It goes till 1902. What's interesting here, and I always find this really interesting, is that the first war of the 21st century, of the 20th century, does not happen in Europe. It happens in Africa. But what it happens is, it happens between two European countries, which is really, really fascinating to me, right? So you have the British South Africa Company, but that's what the BSAC stands for. They're being protected, and you have the Dutch and the Germans protecting them. Now, why are they fighting? They're fighting because of this guy named Cecil Rhodes. Cecil Rhodes is a very rich British entrepreneur, and particularly in the diamond business. He founds the De Beers Diamond Company, which today I think their slogan is "A diamond lasts forever," right? So this company is still around today. And you have this British South Africa company that is trying to take over more and more territory, to develop more and more land and get more and more property. Now Rhodes moves to Cape Town. So his famous saying is that he wants to connect Cape Town to Cairo. You know, Cape Town is the town all the way at the bottom in Africa, in South Africa, and Cairo's all the way at the north. So this intimidates the Germans, and this is kind of the funny cartoon made about him. It's called, I don't know if you could see this, it's called the Rhodes Colossus. So it's this idea that, you know, this is a big burly guy, tip of his toe is in Cape Town, the other tip is all the way up here in Cairo. Now, imperialism, and we'll talk more about this, and I'll probably make another video for you all about sort of the particulars and what we're talking about here. But the results of imperialism are mixed, and I don't want us to sort of think that both of them, you know, it's all bad or it's all good. It has mixed. So I do a cost-benefit analysis here, and anybody who goes into business, you'll know about cost-benefit analysis. So there are benefits to the Africans. So many parts of Africa get railroads and they get infrastructure. They get new roads, canals, things like that, built for them by these European governments. They also get African goods being sold all over the world. So people get to know about the great things Africa is producing. However, there are many bad things that happen because you have Africa being exploited by so many people. Customs being taken out, people losing their homelands. But you also have this wealth problem, where you have this very rich white population in many areas, or at least rich groups of people coming into Africa, and none of them really being African. They might be white, some of them might be African, but this is really the problem. So you don't, and quite frankly, today, Africa, you know, there is a good argument to be made that the Ebola crisis is caused by the implications of imperialism. Now that might be a little bit of a stretch, but it could be argued. But, so this is African imperialism. We will talk, and I will make another video tomorrow probably, regarding the Asian imperialism. So stay tuned.